Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict living the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestations of alcoholism, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences, demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is Rico 12 meeting number 361. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Just Joe, a first-time Rico 12 speaker, and I'm super grateful and excited to hear from him today. His talk is entitled Outcast No More, A Leper's Work Begins, and I'm looking forward to just what that all means and getting into that. But first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 offers a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To learn more, visit Rico12.com. That's RECO12.com, and check the chat here in the live meeting or show notes in the podcast for links. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this mission. Thank you to all our Spearhead donors, past and present, especially this last week to Vivian and Abigail. Your support truly makes a difference. If your higher power is nudging you and saying, hey, why don't you contribute $1 or $2 or whatever you're moved to do, please visit Rico12.com/support or check the links that I'll put in the chat and the show notes of the podcast for one-time or monthly donation options. Every bit of support, financial or especially through word of mouth, helps us share these messages of recovery. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to each of us, the listeners. Now, let's welcome today's guest speaker, Just Joe. And here's just a little bit about him. I've taken his bio that he sent me and put it in third person rather than first person. So I'm going to read through this for you. Joe was born into pain he didn't choose, abused as a child, shaped in silence and twisted by what passed for love. In time, he became a mirror of the very harm he had endured. Caught in a cycle of fantasy, compulsion, and deep confusion, 4 marriages fell apart under the weight of secrets. Joe served 9 months behind bars, spent 3 days locked in a psych ward, survived 5 years on felony probation, and wandered homeless in the deserts of California, his own self-made leper colony. For 20 years, Joe sat in AA meetings, sober, but spiritually bankrupt, never daring to touch the rot in his soul. It wasn't until he entered intense therapy that the truth emerged. He was emotionally stunted, mentally unwell, and spiritually starving. Joe had no program, just pain and pride. When he finally hit his bottom and failed at ending his life, he cursed God. And in that moment, in that broken moment, grace didn't come like light. It came like a whisper. Help someone. Joe remembered what AA had always said, but who would want help from a man like him, a felon, a sex offender? Still, he searched and found SA, and in that fellowship of the condemned, Joe found communion. He no longer wanted out. He wanted in, back in the places he once dreaded, back with the men everyone else forgot. So take it away, Joe. Talk to us a little bit about Outcast No More. A leper's work begins. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to share a God moment, because when you hear your story from somebody else in a different perspective and it's not the I, it really hits the pain. Just wow, that was powerful, very powerful, and thank you all for being here. Share some of my experience, strength, and hope. I'm nearly 60 years old. I'm live in the woods of North Carolina with my wife and my animals. I have, I stopped counting sometime. When it reaches 100, you just stop counting. You just do, right? Because then it becomes, right? And so I have over 100 chickens, 7 dogs, 2 cats, goats, donkeys, and a bunch of rats that I don't want. But, you know, that's life, right? And so I, the blessing of being that now and not being stuck in my own fantasy, no matter what it was, whether it was sex, whether it was worst case scenario, whether it was irrational fear, right? Whatever it was, right? And I don't have that today. I don't listen. I don't have headphones on. I don't have things to distract me anymore. I get up in the morning, I write a meditation and a list of what I need to do to help another sexaholic today. And one brick at a time, my life has become something that I'm proud of, and not only proud of, but amazed at. Because if you'd have told me a year ago, and Damo was there, right? If you'd have told me a year ago, this crazy man coming into the meeting, having people voting whether to kick me out or not, and forcing myself back into the rooms, right? Because I knew that I needed y'all. Y'all didn't need me. And so, fuck you. I'm staying. And I had finally been given something that I really appreciated. And it took a lot to get to SA. But let's talk a little bit of what got me here. I don't want to talk on it too long. I was born into a family. I'm the oldest of 3. I was the boy, 2 sisters, and my father was a Lutheran minister. His abuse and my mom's abuse is not only horrendous, it's also kind of unique. it, and so one of the things was really my father liked being famous. And so anytime that I did something extraordinary, he would steal the thunder from me. Right. And so what happened at the age of 7 is when I had won a county-wide award, he stole the thunder from me, and I ended up splitting into multiple personalities. And through the next 20 some odd years, I created another 28 of them. I ended up with 32 and back down to 3. So thanks to SA for that. So I was fractured, right? I had a point where you want to go run to safety. Your father's there and he's the one that's hurting you. And everyone's laughing at you because what was happening was funny, but it wasn't funny to me. And so I couldn't run away from him and I couldn't run towards him. So I had to fracture to survive. And so I created this personality called Rochelle. And I carried a resentment because of her for so long because I kept getting blamed for things that I did never do. And then come to find out that I actually did them. I just didn't remember doing them. So you carry this intense just anger towards anybody who blames you for doing something. And you're like, no, I'm not that guy. Right. And unfortunately, I was. And it took a lot to get to learn through that. And so the school teacher who abused me, my mother who exposed herself to me, my father putting me into just horrific, horrible situations. And I'll tell this because it's important to the story. So at the age of 14, my father comes and gets me out of high school. And a neighbor of ours, their daughter had been missing for a week. She was 10. So he came and got me out of school, and we pull up to the house and the sheriffs are there. And we walk in and I'm sitting in the foyer when my dad and the sheriffs tell them that they found her body in my best friend's orange grove. as a 14-year-old watching the situation unfold, right? Watching two parents being told that their daughter's never coming home again. And then my father and the mother create an emotional bond that has still uh, strong to this date. So they created an organization called Love, League of Victim and Empathizers. Its number one charter, hidden charter, was to execute Larry Eugene Mann, which was the one who had killed this young girl. And one of the things that my father loved, now he's a minister, and I'm in the car stuck with him, right? And when you're in the car stuck with my dad, where are you going to go? And trust me, I thought about jumping out that door quite a few times. And he would go on about how he admired this young girl because, unfortunately, the reason that she died is that she fought. And if she had just taken the abuse, she'd have lived. And it was a gruesome murder. It was a gruesome story. And so my father started taking me to the court systems. I started watching everything. I started seeing the evidence. I spent 3 to 4 days a week at the family's house with Jeff, who is now my brother-in-law. My sister married him. My nieces live in the house. We are finalizing a lifetime restraining order against one another for what I endured through this. At the very end, my father started to use me as a prostitute for widows in the church so he could get their inheritance. I ran away from home 10 days after I graduated from high school, right into the Navy, and having all these fractured selves and some of them being feminine. So a quick little story, right? And so I love ABBA. I've always loved ABBA, right? And so I was playing ABBA the other night, and I was like, you know what? I love dancing to it, but what is it about ABBA, right? And one of my feminine personalities had always had the desire to be lusted after and be the dancing queen. That's her personality was built just wanting to be the dancing queen so I could get all of that attention, right? Because men clearly don't get the same attention going out there and dancing like a woman does, right? And so, and so I had to create it in order to survive this and express this. And so I still love ABBA to this day. I don't wear dresses anymore, but I don't feed the lust, but I can laugh about it and recognize it. And I see now where it came from, what caused it, and a host of other causes and conditions. And so the military was not very good to me. In fact, it created the worst personality of all. I was coming out of the shower and 30 men grabbed me. I was not clothed. They duct taped me to the ductwork, and I don't know what happened for the next 2 weeks. I woke up brushing my teeth. I've had some recalls to it now. It wasn't a very pleasant experience. I survived it. I got out and I couldn't stay faithful. I couldn't stay married. It was so bad that I was having an affair with my best friend's wife and my wife's best friend. And I felt so emboldened to bring the woman I was having an affair with to my work and show her off. I mean, just the sickness that was in me, the pride that I had for it was, and that really was my MO is I loved taking other people's wives. right? I really, really got really good at it, and I'm ashamed of it, but it is what it was. I mean, it was the most harm that I could cause, right? I could cause harm to her, right, and cause harm to him and the whole family, man. It just and hurt people hurt. They hurt people hurt other people, and I mean, there's some truth to that. Doesn't excuse it, but there is some understanding to it. Um, I was horrible to my first wife. Um, had two daughters, got fixed, smartest thing I ever did. Um, and then just became horrible. I mean, I think I was engaged to one and three or four that were still in the office with 200 people. And because it was all women, I mean, HR's involved, right? I mean, it was all over the office, and I ended up getting fired for it. I still couldn't see that that was the problem. And so my boss is like, you got a problem, you got to do something. And oh, I'm like, oh yeah, alcohol. That's the problem, right? So I started attending AA, and I'm like, yeah, this is the solution, right? And so I worked the steps, do the sponsors. I mean, I went to meetings. I was on intergroup. I did the whole the Instagram version of being sober is what I would say, right? It looked really good, and I talked really good, but I was rotten as shit on the inside. Um, and wife number two came and went. Wife number three came and went. Each one ended horribly. Each one lasted about 5 years, and each one ended with some weird sexual shit. And I still never thought that sex, because I thought that was the greatest thing in the world, right? The more, the better, right? Because as a kid, I was weird and small. and, and a small, weird kid in high school that never gets over 100 pounds. You know how many people want to date him? Nobody, right? Except for maybe the male teachers, it seemed. Uh, I have humor that goes with this Rule 62 now because I have to, right? Or else I'd go insane. I mean, seriously. And so it, I, sorry, I ended up seeking out the first lust of my life, my current wife, right? And so I remember snapping her bra in, I think, seventh grade. So I reached out to her, and she's like, okay. And so she moved out to California, and our sicknesses collided. And I have since learned that I attract either the same thing as me or the opposite of me, but there have always been some underlying factors that have been there. But even through all of this knowledge and understanding, I'm still sick, right? And so we're trying to work it out, and we're children, and so we start each hurting other children. And I'm running a highly successful mountain biking club in California, and I thought that I could handle my lust, and not only did it prove to be wrong, but it also proved to be illegal and put me in jail, took all of my money, took all of my credibility, took the only thing I had left was a broken life and a body, really. Um, it it was I consider it, with the age being lower. It's kind of like a Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, but she was not 18. Um, Still, I abused my power, and it makes me sick to know what I did, because here's what I also learned is that I didn't understand the harm that I was causing, because I had the harm caused to me, and it was a boundary that was already crossed. There was a sickness that I felt as I was behaving out, but there wasn't a clear boundary that was, so it, again, it's not an excuse. It's just an understanding of how to express the experience. So I went to jail, and I didn't fit in well there, right? And so here I am in a place with the antisocial, and so they put me in the antisocial group of the antisocial group, and I'm so antisocial in the antisocial group that they decide that I need to be so antisocial that I need to be in a room by myself. Um, and that seemed to be the best place to be antisocial. And so that's where my journey began, was in solitary confinement as I'm taking strings and sending notes back and forth to another sex offender like myself. And a work began. I started to see sadness, and I started to see things that I didn't understand and still don't completely understand it, but I'm getting closer the more that I get sober, right? Because I'm able to remove myself. And so I don't remember, some time ago, I failed hanging myself. I had gotten drunk enough and brave enough to do it. And I'm really upset that I didn't calculate the bolt into the beam, right? Because the bolt pulled out, right? Everything else was calculated right. It all worked, except that I was too overweight for that damn bolt. So I'm laying on the ground crying and screaming. The sheriff shows up, and that was the first time I was able to share what happened to me on the ship. And that kind of opened me up, right, to who I can help. And then it started leaking in. I can go help other sex offenders. So I reached out looking, and I'm telling you, man, that's really hard to find a group that wants looking for sex offenders that want to help other sex offenders in prison. That took quite a few Google searches to find SA to get that. I mean, it's not something that's out there, which then was. And so I working the 12 steps, I belong to a number of subcommittees in my program. I do a personal outreach now. I peruse the newspaper and look for local men who just got caught acting out. If they're in jail, I write them in jail and say, you can add me as a visitor, and if they want to sponsor, because no one knows about SA. So my job now, because I carried a resentment, because I went to jail in 2011 and I didn't find SA until 2024, right? And if any kind of A program, it says at the end, somebody wants their hand, I want the hand of this program to be there. And for that, I'm responsible, right? So I have all these old timers coming up to me telling me about this and that and this and that. And I'm like, well, where was your hand when I was in jail or when I was homeless in the desert? And so that's what I do now, is that I look for the men in the desert, right? I am the 10th leper is what my call name is. The man that came back and recognized that I was healed because I was really sick, a social disease of sex offender, even though the registry has been removed and also the felony has been removed. So I carry none of the legal, but the newspaper will always carry my shame. And so I've learned to carry it. And I lived and hid in my little leper colony up here in the mountains for a long time, crying like a little boy, right? Little child who created a mess and wasn't willing to stand up and deal with it. And when I started standing up and started helping other men, I started getting a backbone. And then I started taking responsibility and more responsibility for my behavior. And I started getting cleaner. And then I started working with more men, and I did more outreach. And all of a sudden I'm getting cleaner. I don't know, what's that silly thing, right? The measure that we put in is the measure that we get back, right? That's a true statement. That's all I'm going to say, right? And so if you want sobriety, right? And I know probably everyone will be throwing up their arms. Bill W. didn't do the 12 steps. Bill W. did one thing. He did the 12th step. He got mad. He was disgusted talking to his wife. Lois, I can't get these guys to stay sober. And she said, but you are. And so I've probably put out 120 seeds of love out there for possible people, right? 4 responded back. That's 4 seeds that weren't out there. And through me, God did that. I didn't do that. Through God, right? Because do you think that that's the kind of stuff and the people that I really want to be writing to? Nobody wants to be connecting themselves to them. Nobody. And I'll proudly stand up next to anybody today. The worst of the worst. And that goes back. So when my father was talking to me about murdering this guy, putting him in the chair, right? Even as a teenager, I fought with him about the way that God would handle these things, right? And I didn't understand how long and how I've been fighting for sex offenders and pedophiles since I was a teenager. I've created an organization that's outside of that is servicing and helping these people, right? Written literature, personal literature of my experience, strength, and hope to send into them. I just want, because I was alone and I wanted SA and I didn't know it was there. And everyone goes on about attraction versus promotion, but I'll tell you what, you can't be attracted to a flower that you don't even know exists. So those flowers have to be presented to somebody. They can choose to go away. They can choose to walk away, but you know, that's for me. And that's, you know, progress, a lot of progress. And the more work I do for God and the more work that I get up in the morning and try to help another addict, I'm happy, joyous, and free. I have a bucket that's full from a bucket list I never even had of things that I never thought I could do, right? I've written 3 books now. I'm a subject matter expert on probably the 2 most ugliest things in the world, right? And I'm proud of that, right? Because this is something that my guy would do, right? Jesus would do this. So I try to do what he did. He went back to the lepers. He didn't kick them out. He went back. And so me being a leper means I go back. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Justin to bring in my song, because I call myself the professional pervert on top of that. And so here's my song.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M. and me, Justin B., on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M., streaming now on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm going to get this set up so that we can get that song going. It'll just take me a second. Here it comes.
You walk with the lepers, dine with the whores, spit in the dirt, cracked open closed doors. He didn't flinch at the demons in me, just reached through the shame and set me free. I was the kind they warned you about, name in ready, whispered with doubt, but he bent down low, mud on his hands, and wrote a new name in the sand. Now they call me the impressionable pervert, tattooed in grace, digging through the dirt. I walk with the wounded, sit with the shame, preach to the broken in Jesus' name. I was unclean, now I serve dessert. Redemption's got a sense of humor and a brand new shirt. Yeah, they call me the professional pervert. I ain't here for applause or the priest's approval. My temple got flipped at my own removal. I found church in a cell with the rats and regret, and a savior who waits, missed a soul yet. I was buried in labels, chained by my past, but mercy don't ask where you've been, it just lasts. He rewrote my sentence with blood and with grace. Now I lay hands on the shame in his praise. Now they call me the professional pervert, but I preach like Paul with the same old hurt. From cell block pews to the streets at night, I shine that scandalous, sanctified light. The world said unclean, but the Spirit said go. So I love the damned like he did long ago. Yeah, they call me the professional pervert. If he could touch the untouchable, call the dead by name, then maybe, just maybe, he knew what he was doing when he chose me.
Now they call me the professional pervert, tattooed in grace, digging through the dirt. I walk with the wounded, sit with the shame, preach to the broken in Jesus' name.
I was unclean, now I serve dessert. Redemption's got a sense of humor and a brand new shirt. Yeah, they call me the professional pervert. Yeah, they call me the professional pervert.
Very Very cool. I that was a cool song. Thank you for sharing that with us, Joe. And thank you for sharing your story with us and a bit of experience, strength, and hope. I really appreciate it. I've written down several questions for you. And if you in the live audience have questions for Joe, please type them in the chat. I'll get to them. If you want to remain anonymous, don't want me to read your first name, just state it that way, or send me a direct message in the chat and I'll keep it anonymous. First, where I want to go was one of the lyrics, one of the lines from the song that we just listened to, Joe. Redemption's got a sense of humor. Talk to us about that. What does that mean to you, and why was that lyric put in there? I found that powerful and moving.
It was a process, right? That whole sentence was a process for me, right? Because these are personal stories. All of my songs, except for a few, right? I do some parody shit. But anyway, I had to grow up from being a little child and own what I did, right? And it is only through my repetitive talking about it and owning it, right? And that I got to wear a new shirt, right? I used to wear this brown coat that I hid behind, right? With shroud over, and I don't have that anymore, right? I can walk out in the open. I can walk into a church and I can tell them who I am and what I did. And, you know, I've been kicked out of more churches than you might imagine, but I wear that like a badge of honor, right? Because I do say, you know, Jesus wouldn't have kicked me out. He'd have come back for me. And that's what he did, right? Jesus and God came back for me. And I owe my sobriety to God. I recognize that. And it's funny coming to me about talk about redemption, because I hated God, my father and what he did to me and what I learned, right? I had to stop listening to other people's idea of what God was. I threw everything in the trash and I started from scratch, right? I threw out the baby and the bathwater, right? Because what I learned as a child, it started in the bathwater as an infant.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Joe. We have an anonymous question that came in, and I think this is a good one here. What about the victims? Do you and your group talk about step 4s or the process, especially with children victims? How does that work? And the person follows up, you are one of the few that this person has heard own children victims, you know, admitting about that. So talk to us about the process of doing a step 4 in that situation. Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Well, so here's what's there's the question for the program, and then there's the real life question. And so this is from my experience, strength, and hope. I have learned that it's easier to fill in the hole, the creation of your own crap, than it is easier to heal from the crap of someone else's hole they dug for you, right? And so that's the first thing that I learned. What I've learned through my education and as well as my life experiences, this is actually where the biggest disconnection and problem is that 4 out of 5 sex offenders, from my experience, have endured intergenerational incestuous relationships from both parents. And so their boundaries were violated at such an early age. So if we want to make it work, you must heal the predator first, because that was actually the first victim. I know it goes against everything that we feel and everything that we understand. But in reality, we do not understand the harm that we did. And Jesus says it to a lot of people. They were blind. They don't understand. And that's what this is it's a blindness, a sickness. And so for the first 5 years, that was forced on me, is that all I ever was centered on was the victim and how I wasn't supposed to contact them or make any form of amends. But I had to live in that daily space where I had to make a living amends to every human being on the planet. So the minute that I say that I committed a crime, I need to make an amends to them, or they feel that way, because everyone needs to feel that they need to be justified in their own opinion that I am worthy of grace. And 10% of the population will outright attack me. Because what happens is this is a little bit off the program, but these are just realities, is if a victim has not healed from their own sexual violence to themselves, they will push it out to any predator and make the connection, the emotional connection to their predator and their crime to the person who's there, even if they don't match, right? And so I'm not allowed into churches because there are so many women that haven't healed from their own sexual abuse. And so that's actually part of stopping the healing. It's really sick in understanding how it works. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you for going through that. And that's, there's a lot of tricky steps to take in that process and I can only imagine the pain and the difficulties that you endure. We have another anonymous question that's come in from our live audience. What would you say, Joe, is the right way to work the step where sexaholics confess our faults to another? What is the role of facing the consequences of faults, including legal repercussions? Can there be full healing without that?
I can only tell you from my experience. I had a moment in the desert. I didn't know what I was doing, but I can look back and recognize it. I had my own similar experience to other people in the past who've gone out into the desert. And so when I was out in the desert, it changed my perspective on life, right? And being homeless really sure did as well, right? I mean, that changes just the way you view life as well. But being out in the desert and being disconnected from everything rewired me in a way that I can't really understand, which was part of the process of cleaning out the shame, right? Because everything that my father had taught me was against what God really was, right? And so you have scripture, action, and God, and none of the three of them added up, right? And so there's this cognizant dissonance. And so for whatever reason, it cleansed me so I was able to think clear that way. Now, I don't think that I would maintain my sobriety if I didn't do the 12th step. The 12th step to me is the most vital step. I do believe that you probably could maintain sobriety just working the 12th step, but I don't think you would find the happy, joyous, and freeness that comes with working the steps and then going and doing the 12th step, because you're going to have more to carry, right? Look, people always go on about they don't feel like they're qualified. If you're in the program, you're more qualified than the person who's not. Your bucket may be empty, but you got a bucket, right? So, there's always people that can use it. But from my experience, running the steps in 4 hours with a sponsor, ripping that Band-Aid off, come back and do one later, a quarter bit later, because you're going to remember some things else, but get to work, right? That's where the healing's at, is in the 12th step. Do the rest of it, and that stuff will come back up. I hope that answered.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. I want to talk a little bit about the victim aspect of this. You know, you talked about growing up in an abusive situation, brutal victim situations in the Navy, at home, and I'm sure lots of other places where you were the victim. How do you get out of that victim mentality? Because here's my experience. My experience is that if I sit and say, hey, I'm a victim of this, that, and the other, and have been since I was a child, I can't gain freedom from it. It appears that you have gained freedom. How do you move through from victim to victimizer to freedom?
Surrender. Seriously. I don't want to use the word mastered because I'll never be mastered at it, but it is something that is well practiced. My surrender used to be apathy, right? And someone would tell me something or do something, I'd be like, fuck it, right? That's my surrender, right? And then the next surrender was me giving up, right? And that's when the sheriff's behind me with the gun saying, put your hands up, right? And I mean, I'm not surrendering, but I recognize there's metal in that thing and gunpowder, and that can hurt. So I give up, right? And then I get the image that I went to as a young adult and to the Southern Baptist African American church, and the black woman in the back just with her hands raised up, surrendering to God is it, right? That's it now. And so I have, everyone's like, faith, and I'm like, I don't have faith. I don't, right? I hit rock bottom. When I hit rock bottom and I stood back up, I'm firmly on the ground with God now. And as long as I get up every single day and I keep that connection alive, right? Now I know when the connection's disconnected. That's the great thing about this program. And that's how I get to keep my happy, joyous of freedom is like, okay, I'm off now, right? It's now I'm better kiltered. And so I notice that I'm wobbling a little bit. And so people are around me. And so I'm like, okay, I'll back off, right? And then look at what my issue is. And then if my car is running straight, then I know, hey, man, that's theirs, not mine. And so the freedom of owning it, the freedom of being a pedophile, regardless if I am or not, because that's what people are going to project on me. And there's a freedom that once I've accepted that that's what people are going to think of me, I no longer care. And that, because you know why I don't care? Because I have God, right? I know I'm doing the work of God today. And that gives me the strength that no human being can ever give me. And so people could call it's not a cult for me, but I'll tell you what, this right here, being to God, is the best addiction I've ever had. And if whatever we want to call it, I don't give a shit, right? Because this is happy, joyous, and freedom. It's not something that I'm doing to alter it other than helping another human being. And that's it, right? And I help the sickest of the world. And if this is what Jesus felt like helping these people, amen. A fucking men, brother. I'm on it, right? And I can't tell you the happy, joyous, and freedom that I get in going into the jails and working with the most disgusting men and everyone looking at me like I'm a pile of shit, right? And then I look at them and say, I'm a professional pervert, right? And that's where I get to wear a brand new shirt, right? Because I get to say it before them. They don't get to call me a pervert. I get to own it now. So F you.
That's such a empowering position to take, and such a place to look at and say, you know what, and maybe this is where the power comes in. You know, so many people say, why would you sit there in every meeting that you go into and say, hey, I'm an addict? Doesn't that just drive you down, drag you down? Well, gratefully, from my perspective, now that I've experienced this, I love how you said that. I get to say it first before somebody else says, hey, you're a loser, you're an addict. I get to raise my hand and say, hey, I'm an addict. And guess what? I'm standing on solid ground, like what you said, with God, and
Right.
striving to do what God would have me do. Sure, I'm a mess. My life says I am a disaster, but today I am moving out and sharing that with the world. Do you have any other thoughts on that or anything else to put into that, Joe?
I the way that I came to it was recognizing the power that I did have within myself and the ability of what I could and couldn't do or choose to. And so I have another song which is called I Divorced My Incestuous Family. And it was a very painful process for both me and my family. It ended with the sheriff. There was no criminal, but the sheriff brought all the evidence of what I had sent to them over a period of a year, and it was nearly 700 pages. So they got a daily of me, right? And so I put all the crimes in there, and I understand how unhealthy it was for me, but that vomit had needed to come out, and I wanted that vomit to go to the appropriate person and not spread it to anybody else. I'm certain that I could have handled it differently and better, but my grandson came into the picture, and I don't want my grandson to experience what I did. And so I went beyond a lot of bounds and discovered how brave I can be in spaces where I would usually be a little child and run away, right? Because I'm standing on firm ground, right? I mean, that for me is just what I've gotten out of this. And then as I wake up and recognize it, that I don't have to be and do that, and there's better ways to do that. So it's progress, not perfection. I mean, I'm not sitting up here saying anything that I'm a very sick man, but I can laugh about it now, which is what the beautiful part is. And that's the new shirt. Does that help?
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead. I think so. I think that's great. And, Joe, you shared a bit of your story that I'm hearing more and more often over the last couple of years. You were sober in your primary fellowship, the first fellowship you attended for, I think you said 20 years. I hear that, whatever that is, whether it's AA, SA, NA, whatever, any of the A's, if that's your primary fellowship, I hear this. I've been sober in there for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. And I am insane. I'm still not healed. And I've got to find the root of why that is. Talk to us a little bit more about that process where you realized, hey, there's something more than me just working these steps. And how did you put it? Having Instagram sobriety. I love that. I love that concept.
So I knew that I had to help somebody, right? And so the CFC committee rep told me that I had to have the 5th step completed, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And so I set out to do it right, and I got stuck on step 2. And I was stuck on step 2 for longer than I wanted to be, but it took what it took. And so I have an orchard that I would go down every night, and I would have a conversation with that peckerhead. Because he was a real shithead to me. And I had to come to some new realizations, and this is where I had to throw away everything everyone ever taught me. If God created everything, God created everything, and that means God created pedophiles. That helped me to start to change. Then, as I tried to start to help, doors would open and close. And as I walked through the doors that were being opened, I found God. Mm-hmm. And quickly, doors were being slammed in my face where there was no God. And like I said, my journey 9-10 months ago on where I thought I would be and where I am now it's they're not even in the same, I don't even know. It's completely different, right? I could not have imagined nor told this experience. And so this is the thing. And actually I had a guitar shop guy almost tell me never to come back because of my beliefs, and not to share my beliefs. And for me, and this doesn't matter, for me, God is a verb. God's not a deity. And so the argument was about faith. And I'm like, well, faith without works is dead. We can have all the faith. We can work steps 1, 2, and 3, and we can believe God's going to retake us away from our addiction. But if we're not helping another human being, it's going to falter and go to the side. It just is. I mean, that's just been my personal experience, strength to know. Maybe somebody else can find something else that will work differently, but I have to pray to God that I've hated for so long. And when I'm connected and doing the work that's presented in front of me, my life gets grand. And when I take Joey's route, I get stung with lots of bees. And so I try to stop doing Joey as much as possible.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. So as we get closer to the wrapping up here, do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with us before we go into this last little bit?
Do the steps, get them done. Don't be thorough, but get them done, right? There's no reason to sit on these things. Get to the 12th step. Fail. Get to the 12th step. Put your hand out there in your program and help somebody out. And maybe they're not in the program. Maybe they need to be brought into the program. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But all of our program says we want the hand of whatever that program is there for anyone who wants it. And so get clean, get healthy, put your hand out. That's it. That's it. That's the magic formula.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Joe, for a powerful, vulnerable, amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting. I appreciate your willingness to share your story. If anybody would like to get in contact with you, are you okay if they email me and I can connect them with you? And send people your way?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was
Perfect.
reading.
Yep. No worries. So if anybody out there in the listening audience would like to connect with Joe and talk about any of these things that he's working on, these projects he's working on, please send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com. That's RECO12POD@gmail.com. And I'll get you connected with Joe. If you haven't done so already, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's a powerful way to work Step 12 and share recovery with others. And, hey guys, here's a little vulnerability on my part here. As I was doing prep work for today's meeting, I realized that as of today, I do not have a speaker for next week's meeting. So if any of you, or if your higher power is nudging you and saying, hey, you should be a speaker, go ahead and reach out to me there at that same email address, rico12pod@gmail.com. We'll get you lined up. I do have speakers for the rest through most of September, but for whatever reason, I missed this week in lining up a speaker. So reach out to me. We'll get something lined up for next Friday. Stay updated on WhatsApp or the email list if you're not yet subscribed. Same email address to get on that email list. Now, let's wrap up with the 7th step prayer. Joe, are you willing to send us out of here on that 7th step prayer?
Yeah, let me find my white book. I don't memorize things. I'm not that good at it.
You got it.
Can you put it on the screen?
Or I can say it if you'd like.
Yeah, there you go. That'll probably be easier.
Yep.
It's not bad.
Okay, I'll lead us out in the 7th step prayer. I'll do the we version. Our Creator, we are now willing that you should have all of us, good and bad. We pray that you now remove from us every single defect of character which stands in the way of our usefulness to you and our fellows. Grant us strength as we go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. All right, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Remember, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
It ain't about the body, it ain't about the skin. It's the lie that whisper you'll be whole if you give in. It's the high before the hollow, the click before the fall. It's the ache that never satisfies no matter what you saw. They told me it was natural, just boys being boys, but I was choking down poison dressed up like a choice. And now I'm calling it by name, no more hiding in the fog. It ain't just porn I'm fighting, it's the God I made of want. Porn of problem, lust is the thief, selling us heaven and leaving us grief. I wanted to love, but I learned how to crave. Now I'm digging through ashes and calling it brave. She ain't an object and I ain't a king. Porn is the problem, not just a thing. And what about her? Yeah, the other side. The girl who learned early she was worth what she supplied. She didn't want to be seen, she wanted to be wanted. Now she's starved for attention and Instagram haunted. It's the hunger to be lusted, mistaken for love. And both sides end up empty, beneath and above. Two mirrors cracked, reflecting shame, chasing validation instead of names. Porn is the problem, it sells a fake cure, turns humans to products, makes touch feel impure. We thought we were free, but we're slaves in disguise, scrolling through bodies with dead in our eyes. This ain't just a screen, it's a spiritual war. Porn is the problem, and we can't ignore. I want more than a moment behind a glassy screen. I want covenant, not dopamine. She ain't here for my escape. She's the temple, not the bait. Porn is the problem, but truth is the light. I'm learning to see her with heaven in sight. I'm laying down idols, I'm turning from shame. And love don't come cheap, it comes with a name. I ain't cured, but I'm done with the game. Porn is the problem, and I'm not the same. I used to worship lust, now I'm learning how to love.